Alright, welcome back. Just to recap, the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution, later on, which Mao Zedong created after the Great Leap Forward, was specifically for a few things. It was to target at eliminating the what they call the four olds, which means old customs, old habits, old culture, and old ways of thinking. Anything that is related to this, he wants to eliminate because he wants to replace it with the new ideology that he has actually created. So during this time, he made sure that he got a lot of support from the masses and people within his own inner circle to actually extradite forward the Cultural Revolution. Is to really get everyone together, singing the same tune, talking about the same way of life, going towards a same ideology of life. Filmmakers and artisans and anyone that's really creatively important, he fears all these people because he thinks that these people are dangerous and they may actually do a counter-revolutionary approach towards him. So they were all captured and sent to the countryside for re-education. Basically, it's just prison. So this particular madness was for 10 years. 10 years, no outside forces, information, artwork, anything could penetrate to China. Everything was very internalized. The films, opera were all distinguished, but during the Cultural Revolution, it was totally banned. It was replaced by what is called the Revolutionary Beijing Opera films, whereby the Beijing opera performers were replaced by ballet dancers dressed in military garment. Okay, I'll show you some examples in the next lecture. But all the feature film production came totally to a standstill from 67 to 69. There were really not much production during that time. During the 10 years that was the Cultural Revolution, only 8 films were released in total. Most of them were all opera themes of military opera Beijing kind of films. It was really strange. Also during this time, as you can see on the top right hand corner, that's from a still clip from the one of those revolutionary Beijing operas. Everyone was dressed in military style because it was supposed to be a communistic approach. Everyone must be common. That's why it's called a communistic approach. Even though it was quite stylized, it has a lot of melodramatic plot. Everyone's like crying all the time. There's not acrobatics. It kind of feels like a Beijing opera, but it was totally rejected by the Beijing opera traditionalists because it is totally militaristic, whereby the Beijing opera was linked totally to the emperor's time. That's why they totally rejected the Beijing opera because it was very old. An example below, as you can see, is a film called The Red Woman's Detachment. It was done in 72. It's totally revolutionary, which means that it's not your typical Beijing opera with all the masks. Everyone is holding swords and dancing ballets and somersaults, and it looks like a whole totally military drama. Okay, that's the only way I can actually place it in words. As you can see, it's pretty good, quite modernized by today's standards. But you must understand, if this was in 1972 and everyone was used to the traditional Beijing opera, it was really, really bad because the people that used to perform in the Beijing opera, they were either persecuted or they were jobless, or they were sent to prison, or they have to change to do this sort of stuff. So it was very tough. It was really, really tough on those people during that time. Of course, all good things must come to an end, or shall I say, all bad things must come to an end. When Mao Zedong actually passed away, of course, whole China was sad because they thought that Mao Zedong was the so-called founding father of China, brought them to some kind of heights, which basically I don't think so much anyway. But let's talk about the film. Filmmakers started to come back to China after this particular cultural revolution because things started to become better in 1973, 1976. The exodus of filmmakers that left China started to return, and feature films started to increase instead of the 8 that was during the so-called Cultural Revolution. It started to increase between 125 to 150. The majority of all these established studios were all based in Beijing, Changchun, and Shanghai. These were still the capital of China itself, the central of trade and commerce. Some of these studios later on, after the Cultural Revolution, even though technically the military aspect of it was not totally eradicated, some of these studios did still exist in making films for the military. All of them were asked to do things to help China to go to the next level. Some made scientific films on agriculture, some make educational films, some make documentaries, some make newsreels or animation, but especially some of those films that actually assisted the military, they were the ones that were remembered most because for its cheesiness. When they tried to add a bit of drama in some military drills, it just became one of those really, really propaganda kind of films that only China can produce. Now, the Chinese film industry of China later on tried to emulate the studio system of the USA in the 1930s and 40s by basically making it like a studio run kind of stuff, where you have stars, you have scriptwriters, you have producers, all working together under one roof. It does have its merit because everyone started to learn from each other later on. Even though some of the studios were supported by the military, since payment was most of the jobs were all military paid, so some of these filmmakers got their first break by making military propaganda films. Okay, that's okay and that's fine. But some studios were a bit richer after Mao Zedong passed away, when they had more Western commercial jobs. They were one of the first few studios that started to make narrative films all over again. After the death of Mao Zedong, the new premier Deng Xiaoping led the whole series of reforms that was fine, that was okay, but the reforms were not new because it seems to oppress the people more. My take on it was because when he started to do all these reforms, he was a bit slow, because during this time was the new age of education, where students can get access to computers, they can get access to outside news. We're talking about like in the 90s already. So when this happened, when Deng Xiaoping, of course, those people not very educated to my sense of the word, were slow to implement certain things. The students started to think forward. They created their own revolutionary movement, and that led to the Tiananmen Square incident. If you can Google it, you kind of know what I'm talking about, but we're not going to go through that now. So let's look at some other things first. Let's look at the propaganda films that the filmmakers actually made for survival.
车上摸爬滚打，行进中格斗擒拿。登车捕俘训练主要培养侦察兵机智勇敢和不怕牺牲的精神。
专找难的练，硬的碰。根据现代战争的需要，侦察兵的捕俘技能又有了新的提高。
我军装甲兵从无到有，从弱到强，已经成为我军地面作战的重。
Yeah, that's a little bit weird. But you roughly know what I'm talking about. Post death of Mao Zedong, some of these filmmakers found jobs in making military propaganda films. It pays them some money so that they can get work. And of course, later on, they went on to make more commercial films down the line. So this is the last part of the slides for BCR week. We will resume normal lecture when we meet on class. So that's it.